exactly what assistant principals do. I don't remember seeing mine a lot when I was growing up.
That's a good thing.
If I did, I probably wouldn't tell you that anyway. So what's the likelihood you would really, it sounds like you have dual skill sets. What's the likelihood that you're going to find candidates, qualified candidates, that have both the skill sets and that you wouldn't really just end up with a special education person and not an assistant principal? Is that reasonable?
I think that there's some reasonableness to it. I've spoken to a few people, and there are some viable candidates out there. Are there a lot? Probably not. But I would say if we're looking for the most important thing, I think, is to have an administrative background, and to have worked with students and worked within special education. That would connect to the 504 part, but 504 is always changing, so we're always going to constantly need to be updated on all of that. The guidance component is probably the one that will be the biggest question mark around the background of the person having a deep background in guidance or not. It will be interesting to see if you can find all of them in one person, but I think that with any person, they come with strengths and areas to grow. And I think a lot of it is bringing the right person in that has the right vision, beliefs, and attitude to be able to move something forward and make it successful.
And I understand the dropping numbers, and the predictions are, since I'm in higher ed and we get them next, I've seen the writing. We just got a projection that's significant for years to come for Connecticut.
Okay. So once again, I guess I would like to see more. I mean, from what I have seen, just because we have a current assistant principal, there has been a heavy positive presence, and I know this is hard to measure, but how much does that prevent? Okay, so we see how many incidents are up there, but how much, because, you know, a lot of students here clicking heels, they stop their misbehavior. And so it's, you know, how much does it, and the teachers or whatever. So what does that do for morale, and how much is that preventing, thinking about the quality, motivation? So I think I was kind of piggybacking on what Sue has said. It seems like the issues are getting bigger and bigger. One of the things that just stood out to me with that erase survey a couple of years ago was some crazy number, like 74% of students in the last 30 days felt bullied by exclusion. Like, that is crazy, everybody. So I want our kids watched, protected, and cared for. So, you know, I don't know how you measure that, that it doesn't happen exactly. So I mean, I've read about that kind of research and everything, but I just think that's something we need to consider. Then also, what about what we have in place? Because I know that we've had some folks doing this, so I'd just like to hear a little bit about that. And I know it's about positioning, getting the jobs done, and not people, but we are all about people because we're about kids and people and all of that. So I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that, because I think it is, and it's funny, I was driving with my daughter today to a college visit where she's been accepted and got merit money, yay. But anyway, we were driving and I was talking to her about how if you're good at something, sometimes you take on more and more because you like it, you're good, you're a hard worker, you have a great work ethic, and you'll do gen ed and you'll do special ed and you'll do it all. And you really want to, and your heart is there, but you're a human being. And it's not always sustainable. You can get burnt out, you can lose the joy. And so I just want these qualitative kinds of things looked at too, and I think we need to hear more. I just do. I think that you know, these are big changes, and I appreciate the effort behind even thinking of this, and certainly respect all of that. But I just want to know more, because you know, once we change something too, sometimes it's great. Change can be fantastic, but sometimes it isn't. So.
Can I ask you to clarify?
Of course.
When you want to hear more, what
I want to hear. Well, I want to hear. I mean, personally, really, and I know, I wanna hear what the administration thinks. I do. I wanna hear what the department heads here. I wanna know what they think. I mean, are we, setting up our schools and our kids for success? Is everybody heartily embracing this? If so, good, because I wanna heartily embrace it too. So, that's what I wanna hear, since you asked. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just, I don't know if we.
yeah,
got
we
into
didn't
the-
hit this.
Good.
end
I think we
of the
missed the circle. so-
Did we miss the circle?
Did you have a
I'm sorry.
comment about this discussion? I'm confused.
No, just that, when you make changes in anything, if a person was ever in a position where they're able to do that, make change, and I was at one time, the change is not always accepted by everybody who's affected by it. All right, that's a human thing. Some people like it, some don't, some get their nose bent out of shape. All right, when I was in management, I had people leave because I made changes.
Yeah.
The changes were good to do, because they didn't like it. The company didn't hire me to hold their hand. All right, they hired me to make the changes that were necessary to have the company function better. And I'm not bragging, it did.
Sure.
So those people there, they just go by the wayside. I'm sorry, that's life. I mean, come on, unfortunately, sometimes we get in this little sphere that we're all gonna be protected and everybody's gonna take care of us, and it don't work that way in the outside world, okay?
Well, I don't know if I'm addressing you or not, but since I still don't know the chair rules, I will. My husband is in manufacturing, so they produce products. We're in the people business, and we deal with people and emotions and feelings and morale and all of that, and we do. So, there is a difference. I'm just saying, I respect what you're saying, but there is a difference.
That's fine, but when it comes to basic, there's a line there. You cross the line, you better be ready. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I just want to add an observation or maybe a thank you, because if there was any recurring theme when we went through the focus groups last year, when we talked to the community at all levels in all 3 towns, board members, finance council members, and even as feedback to board members, and even input and feedback from board members within this board, at least for the longer term members here, have every year, ever since we've been facing declining enrollment, saying how are we're always looking at classroom and teachers, and the questions have always been, what are we doing with the administration given this wave, this change? And there has been nothing new, there's been nothing innovative, there's been nothing creative. I don't know if this is the solution that helps do things better in the face of declining enrollment, but I do want to applaud you for going out on a limb and taking the challenge, because ultimately the performance and the success of this is going to result in the board's evaluation of your performance as superintendent. So it takes a lot of courage to do what you did, you're proposing, and I just want to say that was the kind of creativity we were looking for when we got the feedback from the towns, from everyone that participated in that last year. And I just thank you for doing that.
Yes, I'm sorry. We'll go around with Dave and Mr. Shuttle, but prior to that, Mrs. Shea, Mrs. Ruffalo.
In terms of the new position, are you looking for someone with an MSW and an 092, or are you, and are there any other towns that have done something like this?
I'm looking for somebody obviously with an 092, because they need to be an administrator to be able to evaluate. Somebody with the special education background, I think we have some flexibility with, depending on what they bring to the table. And then certainly with secondary experience, in particular with dealing with guidance.
Right.
I don't know that there's other towns that have done this exactly the same. I know that there's towns that have split AP positions in both the middle school and the high school that do an AP position as well as oversee a department like guidance or another larger component of the district. So I know of a couple of those. I could bring you more information if you
I was just wondering if anybody ever done this. The other maybe is more of a comment, is that did you anticipate, when you're eliminating position unemployment in
Yes,
case?
it's all in the budget.
Oh, it is in there.
It's all calculated in the budget.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. So
All of-
in those figures here, that could you could net out to even.
In your line item amounts that are in here,
Mhm.
you will find that there are the unemployment costs that are listed in
Oh, okay.
here. And they've been calculated based on the budget that has been brought forward.
So, but your net savings for this might be a break
Page 42.
even the first year.
It might be, yes.
Okay.
I agree with Danny, it's always difficult, reduction in force, whatever the discipline, whatever the industry. I've worked with engineers and architects for years. They're way up there in terms of abstract thoughts, and they aren't very interactive personally. But reduction in force is hard for everyone. I've seen it happen in the industry I was in. You know, it was like boom bust, just like the economy. It was up, it was down, and you know, wherever you, it depended upon what state you were in or what state your work was in. If your work was in Connecticut, you're out of luck, except for maybe schools. Whereas if you were somewhere else, so it was continually fluctuating, and it was dependent on from job to job, what job came in the office and what job didn't, and which one bid you won. So, you know, I understand reduction of force is difficult. It's not easy for anyone. It's not easy for the staff or the administration. And declining enrollment is driving some of this, and the budget is driving some of this. And these are forces that we don't have any control over, but we have to deal with them. That's all I have to say.
Okay, next.
Not easy.
Yeah. So just getting back to page 5, I think I did the math. Is the math incorrect?
It is.
So
It
it's,
should be, instead of 265, 799, it should be 275, 789, for a savings of 51.95. Sorry about that.
no further questions.
That was my question as well.
Okay.
You know, and to Danny's point, I understand, you know, people were looking for a reduction in administration, but I just think that's a lot of movement to save $5,200.
I don't have anything with that right now.
Yes, it's very difficult. I would agree. I hope there's a change management plan that's going to be implemented when you go about doing this, so morale doesn't.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, I think I would, you know, echo that this is a lot of change, so it's looking at a lot of things and leaving no stone unturned, but it is a lot of movement, and I do worry about how much change it is in one person moving another, and ultimately how it affects the kids for this amount of money when, you know, we had that other slide up, whether we have those people or those children or not, and then we're talking about doing all of this that's going to affect a whole lot of kids for $5,200. It just, I don't know, makes me wonder.
And I'm not I would propose this if it didn't have any cost savings. I'm looking at proposing this change based on the needs of what I have assessed as being the needs of the district, which are oversight of 504s, oversight of the guidance department, and more oversight and support for special education both in and out of district.
I'm sorry, yes. I was just going to point out that, recognizing that we're adding a position, it's not, I don't know that it's just about the money, because it's the adding of the special ed personnel, people personnel supervisor. I think that's driving this change.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide was around the school avoidance program. There's more details about it on page 15 in your budget book. But the school avoidance program is overseen by the Director of Student and Personnel Services. Again, allowing this person to be in district a little bit more, helping to launch the program is a big part of why we're looking at the supervisor position as well. No new personnel will be added. However, we are going to change the ECBA position for the contract now, we do not have a full-time BCBA, and yet we pay, what we pay for that person would be equivalent to hiring a full-time BCBA that is a contracted service, so I'm looking to make that change. Overall, the program is cost neutral. We're looking at being able to shift personnel within the district to be able to oversee this position by, again, the department coordinators going back to the classroom full-time, which is the addition of a .8 with the reduction of the 1.0 special education teacher. We have personnel to be able to cover this and to be able to work within this new school avoidance program as well as within the STEP program that we have within the district. Just see. I'll leave that one as, that one is next. That kind of stands alone.
Would you want comments?
Question?
I did. Well, just, this is the position that you said, I mean, this program hopefully will help us save money by keeping students from being outplaced.
Or bringing some back, hopefully.
And bringing some back, so it could
Yes.
be a cost savings.
Yes, and I think for year one implementing it, we'd keep it within the district, but I see down the road where it's something that we could be able to expand.
Attract.
Yes,
Attract students.
Yes.
And
that would be my hope.
gain some revenue.
But we need to launch carefully and
Right.
then grow.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm sorry, did Mr. Tremont and Mr.
Go ahead.
Hustle? Okay.
Go for it. I'm good.
Mrs. Sharpley?
No, nothing. I guess I just had a question. I'm just curious because the numbers of special education students continue to rise. I guess I'm surprised that we're reducing a teacher. What are your thoughts?
By reducing and removing the department coordinators, they are not counted as full-time teachers in the classroom because they have time in their schedule to be department coordinators.
Right.
So by reducing those positions, it puts them back into the classroom. We gain a .8. We have then the reduction, so I'm gaining .8, I'm reducing a 1, so it's actually a reduction of a .2 overall with all of that shifting and changing. The next slide coming shows you caseload numbers.
Okay.
I don't see that those are going to change very much, and whoever's in the STEP program and/or hopefully the school avoidance program, they will be properly serviced within those programs, and those caseloads would be in those places. So I don't think that we need this additional teacher, and I think after we spend another year of evaluating how we're doing within the program, we just haven't had time to do that. We'll take a look at, are there other reductions we can make within special education, but this is the only one that I feel comfortable with at this point.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, wait. Judy, you were done? Okay, sorry. There was a question around a couple of years ago, we cut the PT and OT position. I didn't get a chance to go back and do any research on that, so I'm not sure exactly the information around that. But we are still funding OT and PT. We'll continue to fund them as our contracted positions. They are in the budget on line 303. It's for this current year and for next year, and line 120 is for the summer school part of that. And we continue to look to contracted services and have them part of what we are paying for students.
Okay, anything on that, just? Okay, I think there's that.
The next one was about the reduction of the special education teacher and caseloads. Currently, right now, caseloads should remain the same. At the middle school and high school, caseloads range from 7 to 13 students, and the reduction I see of a 1.0 will be offset by, again, the department coordinators going back to the classroom full time, and we're not anticipating a real shift in those case numbers. Does the arrangement with AHM make financial sense to the district, and what is the outcome of the furlough days? We'll start with the second question. They have decided not to go forward with the furlough days at AHM this year. As far as the arrangement with AHM, right now we currently contract for 2 social workers with AHM. And as we look to develop and adapt our programming and the needs of our students drive the needs of the district, there is an advantage for us not having the connections with AHM, so it allows us to hire the type of personnel we want at that time. AHM might be able to provide those services for us, but it allows us to have more independence as a district to choose the who and what of the servicing we would like, and to also then work with those personnel to be able to determine what it is we're asking them to do within the teacher contract, but asking them what we want them to do, whether we want them to bring different types of services, run different types of programs, and with us then having those as being our employees rather than AHM, it does provide us a little bit more ability to be able to program within the school. So right now, we haven't made any changes to AHM for next year, but it's something that we're looking at as we take a look at our school wellness program and the needs moving forward. Any questions?
So is the current situation as it is right now, is the school districts allowed to structure them and tell them what they need to do, or is it left? What is that situation? How is it structured?
They are our employees that we contract through them. So we define the role of the social worker within the social worker aspect. But let's say we don't want a social worker and we want somebody else with some other background to better meet the needs of students. I can try to work through AHM and be able to see if they can help us to find that person, or if they can hire that person and we can contract through them. But it is that additional step and kind of the third party part of all of this, much like we dealt with the furlough days, that does have some hoops that you have to jump through sometimes. That makes it just a little bit more cumbersome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just really a comment. I'm a little biased because I'm involved in AHM. I sit on the
Wonderful.
coalition, but the services that they offer our children is amazing. So I would really like to talk about this. I know it's not happening this coming year, 18-19, which is a good thing, but really would like to understand a little bit more where you're coming from, because the services that they offer is amazing to our children, and I would hate to lose that for our children.
So there's 2 different aspects of how the schools interact with AHM.
Mhm.
We contract the 2 social workers through AHM, but we also have our school relationship with them, with JRB, with the other services, with the drug and alcohol counselor, all of those other components that I'm not talking about with this, that we would continue to have that relationship. I agree with you, what AHM provides to the communities in the area is phenomenal, and we need them to continue to be very active in the support between the schools, the families, the communities. That's a really important thing for us to continue to advocate for. This is a different component of our relationship with AHM through a contracted service in the school.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay. 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 This gets to reductions in teachers and positions, and the information that I'm using in order to suggest that the reduction of these FTEs is appropriate. I am going to start with the middle school class reductions. The way that I've tried to show you this is what's happening this year and what will look different for next year. So, and I've only addressed the reductions that are listed in the budget book as something that we are reducing and not filling. The English teacher, right now you can see the way that the English is structured. We provide interventions for reading and writing separately. And I believe firmly that a literacy-based intervention model is more appropriate for students. It's one that, by separating out reading and writing, those skills interact with each other, and so
one person is going to help support teachers in their classrooms doing the research, but they just need to plan for that, so that they can be using special secure lesson, they need to plan ahead for that. And school guidance counseling, it would increase the caseloads from about 200 that started this year right now, that's already been reduced to about 235 during the second semester because of the need to shift the 0.5 person up to high school to cover a leave and a retirement at the mid-year mark. So classes are going to all run at the middle school. They might run differently and it will impact class sizes. The next one I have is high schools. I don't know if you want me to do high schools.
Why don't you do that, and then we can ask questions, I think, given the number of
So-
slides, that makes sense.
Again, at the high school, looking, and just to preface this, when I talk about what classes will run next year, and I think I explained this at the last board meeting as well. At the high school in particular, it's hard to tell with electives at this point what will run and what won't, because it will be based on enrollment numbers when kids sign up for their course selection processes. So it is very possible that a class at the high school, an elective class in particular, won't run next year, but it's simply based on the fact that there wasn't interest in kids and they're not, they didn't pick it, so we don't have enough students in there to run the class. So Latin, there's that reduction in split between middle school and high school, so the number of sections are reduced from 37 to 32. We do the calculations of this a little differently than at the middle school, just because we function based on sections of the high school. So that's the way that this is presented, and I did go over this with both the middle school and high school principal, and this is the data that we've been using in the planning process. Math is going from 63 sections to 55. Art, we're still looking at 19 sections, but we're going to have some flexibility around maybe what electives are offered when. Home economics going from the 20 sections to the 19 sections. We will still be offering the early childhood 1, early childhood 2, and culinary classes. We'll just be offering a few of the culinary classes and or the early childhood classes. And technology education going from 31 sections to 26 sections. And we'll again have to look at enrollment and interest there. And just so you know, there was a question around the board policy around instruction, around class sizes, because all of the slides that we just talked about are given through class sizes. And there is a board policy that talks about projected sizes below 10 will be brought to the Board of Education to review during the budget process, which is what we are doing right now. So, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Castillo?
In the technology education, with the reduction in staff, I've heard that that may affect the Project Lead the Way, because that the member who would be was trained in that, and we get a grant. Would we still be able to do that, or are we looking to?
So given the ripping process, we will be using the appropriate indicators to determine who would be the person that would be reduced. There's more than one option.
Okay, because we had spoken about that before, and you had indicated that seniority was, the primary designation for you.
If you're tenured.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Mrs. Scheck?
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with this, the class sizes. It's interesting to me because even at the increased sizes, they're less than what I used to have to teach in art.
And again, these are projections.
It's doable.
Yeah.
I know it's doable, and they have a wonderful facility too. So,
Mr. Traveler?
Just one question. I know the committees got off to a late start, and I'm not quite sure if a lot of committees are meeting right now, but I think we're going to pick that up again. But was any of these changes discussed with the program committee at all?
No, program hasn't.
Given that.
That was my only question.
I know you say student interest has a lot to do with what classes run, but my question is, will all classes be offered? Like, will the students have a chance to sign up for every class that was offered at the beginning of this year?
At this point, I would say yes, plus some new ones that are in your budget book.
Okay. That's all.
I'm concerned about Project Lead the Way. Not to say that I'm not concerned about other programs that are being cut, but that in particular, I think is a draw. We've been talking about trying to attract people away from the magnet schools. I think that that's a huge piece. So I just want you to hear that. I mean, I understand cuts have to be made, but I think that that's a program that, I mean, maybe we can train a different teacher. I don't know about how we would do that, but I definitely don't want to see a disruption in that program.
And one of the things the program committee had talked about is evaluating the Project Lead the Way. It was one of the goals that we had talked about at the beginning of this year, and we're in process of looking at doing that and getting some input from the teacher and the standards and the students and all of that to take a look at how we're doing with that as well. So it'll help us through that process. Thank you.
Why, I'm looking at what classes won't run, and math went down more than the others, it looks like.
It's just depending on the number of sections you're going to have to offer of the different math classes. So for example, and this is all done, the high school administration is wonderful. They're very planful in how they look at their numbers and their courses and all of that. But for example, this year we've got 2 sections of Essentials of Geometry. Next year we're only anticipating 1. So it's based on the class and just the grade levels moving up. You know, sophomores are taking this class and there's fewer of those, more of these. And so it depends. And they offer a lot of different classes. They offer things from Essentials of Algebra to your general algebra, geometry, algebra 1, algebra 2, trig, AP Calc, but then they also have their hybrid probability and statistics class, Math for Success. So there's a variety of classes in different sections, and just based on needs, that's what we're projecting.
So my 2 things circled were technology, education, and math. With math, would class sizes remain the same? I wasn't...
At the high school?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they would be very much in the ballpark, going, I do not see a major increase. So no, the class sizes right now at the high school, that's for next year. Projected class sizes next year at the high school are anywhere from 11 to 25 in pre-calc honors is what we're looking at. And those are pretty much what we're looking at right now.
So 11
11 are in
25.
Essentials of Pre-Algebra is the projected class average size.
And pre-calc honors is,
And right now, we're projecting 25 for next year in that.
okay. That number is big it's big. 25 in pre-calc honors is a large number, and
Right now, you have 24.
well, I think one of the things that RHAM has aimed to do and will hopefully continue to do is develop math talent. We have many, many students who, as measured by standardized tests and other things, interest, look to do well in math, and 25 is, and the teachers are phenomenal, but that is a lot of kids for them to manage. It's,
There's 24 right now.
I'm sorry?
For pre-calc honors.
Yeah, it is. If that was one of the standards, yes, it is, and I know that
No, I'm not
those.
disagreeing, but I'm just asking, do we have any feedback as to the students suffering now? 'Cause then we get the
Well,
same-
you know what, I can tell you if I put on my parent hat, for, and I'm going to say this, not that it's a personal agenda, but it's what I know well, because I'm living it, so it's not hearsay. I know many families who, yes, are in that because of the age of my children right at this exact moment. And the teachers are excellent. It's not that. The teachers hold the students to a very high standard. They consider it honors, so it's at a higher level. So, yes, they're independent students and they are excellent teachers, but 25 or 24 just does get to be a large number. And as we're mindful of developing all talent, I think we should also develop our math ability and talent of our students.
So my question to you then is, or
Yeah.
to Dr. Law, is how many faculty do we have to add so that we have what is the ideal class size for pre-calc honors? Is it 10?
I don't know, I would have to look to the high
Right,
school.
well, I'm trying to understand the point. I take what you're saying with a lot of credibility,
Yeah.
right? I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you're telling me. So if
Mhm.
you tell me 25 is bad, I want to know
I'm
what is
telling you-
good.
I'm telling you it's a lot, I'm telling you a lot.
Oh, I know it's a lot. I'm just saying if it's bad, you're saying
I'm
from
telling
your
you-
experience, that's a hard class to manage. So if
I'm
it's
not
a hard,
saying
if
that,
it's,
I did not say it's a hard class to manage. I'm saying parents are supplementing outside of school.
what does that, explain to
They're
me
hiring tutors and things outside of school.
Oh.
And numerous parents. I don't know that we want to have this conversation right here in this way right now. But my point is only, all means all. All means all. It means the whole continuum, the whole spectrum. You know, if we're looking for every child, we need to look for our honors children too.
Understand, you have much more background in this than me. I'm just trying to anticipate what is the right number, because
Yeah.
if that's the case, if the board goes in that direction, we're gonna have to make an addition there. I don't know what that number is. Is it 10? Is it 15?
I think,
Is it 5?
Jean just said, and I think she's right, I think that would be a good thing to bring back to
Well,
program.
that's what I'm asking. What's the right
I
number?
think, you know what, I think that would be, if you want a real answer, which I think you do, I think that should be back to program, because I know that, and I have the greatest respect for the teachers, and I think that's why, you know, you look at the math SAT scores here, that is what is so really, really sky high and stands out, our math program, and our teachers expect a lot. So, you know, I think we need to get more information.
Who would you get the information from?
Who would I get the information from? I would ask the superintendent. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, go run around and ask. I'm going to ask the superintendent to get it from the principals, who would get it from the department heads by talking with the teachers, as well as, you know, anything research-based.
Okay. No, the only reason I ask, I always hate to go back to basic policy, but I believe in the, you know, the students getting an education, but then you gotta be careful also. It's what you call job security also. All right? Because I've known some teachers, they like to whittle the class down because then it'll take another teacher, okay? You do run into that, let's face facts, all right?
Yeah. Well,
All I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough.
So you gotta know, you have to get what information you get, that's all.
And then,
Go ahead.
I do have a question. In a course, let's say like pre-calc honors or something like that, an advanced class, I don't know, you know, what the term is used typically here, but what do they need to do to take the class? Does anyone who signs up for the class get to take it, or are they screened before they get placed in a class like that?
Get back to that class.
Okay.
I can answer you. In Marlborough at one point, they had to score in the normed range was 100, which was dead average of the gifted. So they had to score the gifted of the gifted, if that even makes sense to you. So at 130 on a gifted normed thing. So they are adequate, appropriate students. And then on the maps, if Michael Cerrusi is here, he could tell you to go ahead there, and Lauren could tell you, those were very, very, very high scores that could compete against absolutely anyone. They were years ahead. So their ability is not a factor in this situation of those students, because they had to be assessed here as well to go to MAPS to be in some of these classes.
Yep, you're talking about elementary, right?
I'm talking about right along their path of some of these kids who were in that program. I'm talking about their path was, they were first assessed by, I don't even know what it was, tested something of mathematic ability or something. A specific math test to test for giftedness. And it has a norm, and the 130, what they misinterpreted, because I actually talked with the company. So these kids are gifted kids in mathematics. And I still actually have that data, so it's fascinating. So I'd be happy to share that.
I agree that we should probably discuss it in program.
What is the maximum? Is there a set number you can't go beyond? Like, daycare, it's a ratio. What's
Your class size policy is only speaking to numbers under 10. No, as a former high school principal, I can tell you that I make decisions all the time based on class size. One of the few restrictions you tend to have are in classes that are science-based with lab spaces and or other technology-based classes when you talk about safety issues and some OSHA guidelines. But your policy doesn't speak to any specific guidelines at the top end, and I think that it's something that we do work with our department heads, and I know that all of these recommendations have come from the administration through their conversations with department coordinators.
And is there tracking for cases where people are not accepted because of a capacity issue?
I need to get back around the qualifications that Carol was talking about in order to get in, and how students are doing in there, and get you some data also on just class sizes over time. So I'll have to get back to you about all of that.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Sometimes I've heard that there are some kids who, are taking 3 AP classes or something, and then they're crying about how much homework they have, and, but.
Right. Well, this is an AP we're talking about. This is an honors class, so. But I
Yeah,
will.
and it'd be good to know the difference between the two, too, because I'm not clear on that.
Yep. So AP classes are curriculum that is by College Board,
Right,
the
you have to
standard
take a
curriculum for
test.
AP, that, yes.
So we can continue this in the program. One thing
Yeah.
you might want to look at is in a time period when we're really trying to produce STEM people for our economy, for our businesses, those tests are locking people out. They're done very young. In 7th and 8th grade, decisions are made that will lock people out of sciences because the math is a prerequisite for the science, and I think that is something that the school might want to take up at some point.
Well, I want
actually
to
agree
be able
with
to
you.
get back to you about what we're actually doing as far as the schools go, as far as signing up for classes and all of that in the middle school and the high school. So let me bring back to you the process around all of that, and we can certainly talk about that in the program as well, so that we have a whole picture of what that looks like.
I fully agree with that. I think it's developing math talent, so I fully agree. But what I'm saying is there were students who, as measured by multiple of these specific tests, qualified by that. But I think another thing we spoke about, and to just interchange this or whatever, one of these things that we spoke about at the strategic planning committee, and I don't know the answer to this, the guidance might know, or the principals or Dr. Law, but how many of our kids are getting significant merit money? Like, what do their profiles look like? Because it's a lot of kids here, and like, how does that all weigh in? And I don't know the answer to that, but a lot of kids here,
It's in the millions. I did it a couple
Oh,
of
yeah.
years ago.
it's
in the millions.
huge.
It's in the millions.
College
The
merit,
amount of
it's
merit, college
huge.
merit money for our classes over the years. If you
It's-
factor in a 4-year college and the money that they're getting for merit for 2, 3,
Yeah, but how
whatever the number of
these,
kids. I did it a couple of years ago when we were not arguing about, but discussing class rank and whether or
Okay.
not that was applicable. I went back to look at some of the forecasted numbers.
if you could even send that out, because I mean, that's very interesting, but is that it's easy to say don't take AP, but how many of those kids do take, or are they looking at in that holistic thing? And, you know, I've learned so much from board members, to be quite frank, from Rich, Bruce, Danny, and Dave specifically, because they've had older children than I do on that. But that's just a huge piece and does factored in. So when we're looking at all of this holistically, along with our strategic plan, our career, whatever we said, college and career and future in this globally competitive future, where does all of that? So I think going back to programming is really, really appropriate, as a few people mentioned.
I think a lot of those kids that are taking AP Math, AP Science, probably, you know, English. A lot of those kids that are getting those big scholarships.
There's a lot of money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
not only that, if I may add, there was, and I've said this in the past, but it was at a CAVE conference, and there was a keynote speaker there who was from Northeastern. It was a researcher there who pretty much came out, and this was 10 years ago, said that students by 10th grade, if they're not on the right math track, you can't even apply to engineering schools, right, for college, if you're not on the right track by 10th grade, pretty much. So I'm interested in seeing it, but I'm also, you know, I just asked the programming committee that, you know, if the numbers are where they are now and you're recommending the same numbers going forward, and that's not ideal to where we are, and there's detriments to that, or there's problems with that, I would like to know
Yeah.
what those are as we address it.
Right.
That's all I'm asking, because I really want to understand what the negatives are,
Yeah.
because our kids have always scored just
No,
tremendously
fair
well
enough,
from a
and
math
will
standpoint.
depend on hearing from the, as Mr. Tremont said, the professionals on that and their input, because we have been at a level of excellence, and can these numbers maintain and increase that? And I think that's appropriate and fair, so we will do that. Programming has noted that.
And just to mention for programming, the programming subcommittee meeting is on the same end as the board meeting night next week, so we'll have to come up with another date to meet.
Okay.
Well, these meetings don't really run long, so why don't we just?
Absolutely, thanks, Sean, that's a good idea.
You can meet after the board
Yeah,
meeting,
right, why not?
Pat, just for a baseline, how many math and how many science positions are being eliminated?
There's only one, there's math retirement, we're not hiring it back, and in science, it's a 6th assignment at the high school that we don't need to fill. Let me just check and make sure. Science is just a 6th assignment in general
Okay.
science.
So that's in one additional class period that a science
We just
teacher's
don't
not
need,
going to be
right,
doing.
we just don't need, numbers wise, we don't need it. Okay. Speaking of 6 assignments, that was great lead-in. Thank you, Dave.
There was a question about just what are they and the impact of them. This is kind of a broad overview, but 6 assignments are used to address class sizes that are large or offer classes that would require a teacher to teach more than their contractual 5 classes. 6 assignments have been given for additional work as well, such as like the planning for the Municipal Wellness Day or the extra summer hours for technology work. Teachers get paid on a prorated basis based on their current salary. And the 6 assignments that have been reduced that you see in the budget book that are on the personnel sheets on page 19 and 20. The 6 assignments that have been reduced are based again on class size numbers. So for example, in Spanish, there's a reduction of 2 6th assignments. It's because we just don't have the number, we are not projecting the numbers to meet that. Same thing in the general science that we just talked about, the health and PE units and numbers. And the media center specialist, the 6th assignments, again, are for the additional tech work that will be that we're looking at to have happen in the technology, the redesign of the technology department. The guidance counselors, there were 6 assignments given for being department
Oh, do you have questions? I think you just, if people have questions, maybe rather than just going, you know, kind of signifying, and if there are a lot of people, I'll just kind of call on people just, or, that's okay. Okay, yeah, sure, continue, please.
This is about the workload and guidance and evaluating the department. And I plan to evaluate the department by actually assigning an administrator to oversee the department by using the American School Counselor Association, Connecticut School Counselor Association materials and resources to help guide and evaluate, set expectations for that department moving forward. To gather information from all stakeholders about the department, what's working, what's not, and that's from students, that's from parents, that's from other teachers, because guidance from other teachers as well within the district. And to create a plan for growth and development based on that feedback and that feedback. One of the things that we're looking at as far as workload goes, the recommendation by the American School Counselor Association is a ratio of 250 to 1 students to counselors at the middle school next year. And right now, given the number of counselors we have in students, it's a 235 to 1. And next year at the high school, it will be a 159 to 1. And might be adjusting some of the FTEs at the high school to better even out with the middle school and provide a little bit of support there. But we'll be talking about that within the administration moving forward. But that's the answers for that.
I just have one. Since the meeting last week, we received an announcement of retirement from one of the counselors.
Right.
Will you be replacing that position?
Yes, so there's been 2 retirements, one mid-year and one at the end of the year. One will be replaced, one is not.
Too early to do all the guidance counselors do apply for the same thing?
I would have to check, I know in all of the districts that I'm familiar with and they work with, they do. 504s are really a general education support for students, and they, in my opinion, get along with the guidance counselors should know those students best.
Anything else?
Students are taking iReady at the elementary level. I didn't confirm that, I'm just thinking this was the question, so. Is there a proposal to change the benchmark assessment at the middle level so that we can compare scores? We currently, as a district, are using NWEA as our assessment, our standardized assessment within the district for reading and math growth, and it's related to the standards. At this point, I continue to assume that we will use the NWEA because it's comparing standards to standards. iReady is comparing standards, NWEA is comparing standards, so we can take a look at the growth of standards over time, even though they might be 2 separate instruments. So at this point, the answer to that would be no, we have not discussed making any changes on that. Okay. Who will evaluate paraprofessionals, tutors, and other non-certified staff? Paraprofessionals that support special education, because we do have some paraprofessionals in the district that do not support special education. So those, the ones that support special education are evaluated by the classroom teachers and case managers, and that information is shared at the end of the year. The evaluation system needs to be updated. That particular system needs to be updated to provide more formative feedback throughout the year so that people aren't just getting the information right at the end of the year. Other non-certified staff should be evaluated by administrators. I think there's been a few holes in that system, so we really good time to work on making sure that that gets done. But that's the answer to that.
What if you just keep, and we'll stop you.
Okay. The next one was just a chart that illustrates the difference between the proposed personal costs and savings. I can make a different one as well, but that's the chart. Looking at 17, 18, and 18, 19, there's a reduction in salaries and slight increase in benefits.
Is that correct? Because there was a slide that needed to be.
Yeah, that
would be
impact. This is correct.
I know there was a comment made in your report about benefits, and where is that trending for this year, the first year?
We are planning for an 8% increase.
For next year, but how is the current year?
The current year right
progressing?
now, we're funding well for that. We've been able to cover all little bit about the same thing, but what will the revenue generated from student parking and the pay for play, primarily those revenues, what happens to them? Revenue for parking and pay for participation in clubs is counted as revenue for the district. It will not specifically offset any particular item, but it goes into, and as you looked at on the green sheets that we handed out today, it goes into the revenue part of our budget. So it is not, because taking in for pay for play doesn't offset something specifically in athletics. It just goes into the revenue generated by the district.